Welcome to the Grove Street Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Welcome back, Grove Street family, to another episode of the Grove Street Podcast. I could not be more excited to be sitting across from our guest today, Mr. Bob Miglani. He's worked for Pfizer for 20 years. He went to the Harvard, graduated from Rider, came to America from India with $75 in his pocket. And he's done a lot of amazing things, wrote 3 books right here, Embrace the Chaos, Make Your Own Luck, and Treat Your Customers. So a lot of exciting things to learn from today. And, Bob also likes to travel, try fruit, and goes to Soul Cycle to get some good exercise in. Did I miss anything there, Bob?
No, it's all good. It's all good. Nice to see you, Darsh.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having
me. I'm super excited to have you here. And I think, you've done a bunch of amazing things in your life, from, writing your own books to really starting in sales to becoming a director of Europe for Pfizer. There's been so many amazing things that you have done. And yeah, this is going to be such an amazing podcast.
I'm looking forward to talking to you and really learning from you as well.
Yeah.
And see what's going on. This is great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I think the big thing here is really giving value back to a lot of young professionals.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so many different perspectives, right? There's my perspective. I just graduated from school. I'm doing my own thing. People who are maybe a little bit older, 27, 28, working in the city or having their own career. But then also someone like yourself who's really done a lot of different things for a long time and really have a lot of expertise. So yeah, I think it's going to be really great. And kind of to dive right in, I'm super curious, in the time that we live in right now, one of the books that you wrote really stood out to me. It's called Embrace the Chaos. And I think even in my own life right now, there's so much chaos going on. In the workforce, there's so much chaos. There's really chaos everywhere. So I'm really curious what that exactly means to you right now.
What it means is that we get stuck. We look at the future and we say, oh my God, the world is so complicated. Should I be looking for another job? Should I be starting a business? Should I be starting a podcast?
Yeah.
Right? You have asking all these questions and you look at the future and you see a lot of uncertainty. And so what happens is when we get so much complexity, uncertainty, randomness, and the world's going so fast, speed, what we call the 4 forces of chaos, right? When we see the chaos out there, we get stuck. We freeze. Yeah. We don't know what to do. And what happens is the worst thing happens. You do absolutely nothing. And time goes by and you're like, geez, shit, I should have done this a year ago, 2 years ago. And so what happened to me in my life was I was working at Pfizer and I was stuck. Yeah. I was stuck. I didn't know which way to go. And so I did nothing. And so what I learned in my journey, my own journey, is you can't overthink it. You can't overcomplicate it. And the world is always going to be uncertain. Yeah. So the most important thing we can do is to move forward. Move forward and take action. Once we do, there's something great that happens, Darsh. You know what happens?
What happens?
You get a result.
Yeah.
You get either it's bad or it's good. Well, if it's bad, don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
If it's good, do some more of it.
Yeah.
But really, chaos today is feeling of getting stuck. And I think that's where a lot of people happens is that when they get their job, they like their job, but they're really dissatisfied. Something's going on internally. And then they kind of like, oh, should I leave? I'm making good money. Right, but I hate it. I don't like my boss, too much politics, this, that, and the other. I don't get to experience anything. I'm on Zoom all day long or whatever, right? It's
seriously.
Like, geez, that's not what I signed up for. But they're like, oh, I can't leave because I'm dating this person here or I'm doing this thing. So this feeling of being stuck gives you a lot of anxiety. And what I learned is you've got to really take over that anxiety with action. And then once you do, you're going to find so much more learning, so much more understanding. You're going to feel good about yourself. So that's where I think it's come from.
Yeah, and I think especially with the part you were saying about feeling chaos at work and like not knowing, kind of being stuck, I can really relate to that because when I was at LinkedIn for the past year after I graduated, for one, it was an amazing experience, but these are the first times you're going to have some of those thoughts, right? Like, is this the right place for me? Am I loving what I do every day? Do I feel passionate? Do I want to keep going? But it is too good to leave, right? They treat you too well. You make a good amount of money. It's a really big company for your resume, and it's all these things. Whether you're in college, there's so many different examples of this. And yeah, I mean, when I think of like being stuck, it's funny because stuck and chaos are kind of almost oxymorons. Because chaos implies there's a lot going on, but stuck feels very, very still. So how do you feel like about navigating that chaos, right? Because I know you mentioned about doing, and I very much agree with you there. I think taking action and trying things is inherently what's going to give you your answers, right? If you fail, all right, now you don't have to do that again, or what lessons can you learn from that? But as you said, if you do it and it's successful, all right, let me keep putting more eggs in this basket. Let me keep feeding this and fueling it. So what's the kind of thing, where a lot of students right now, I know you have one of your daughters is in college at Purdue University. Yeah. So for a lot of people, like your daughter, like, people who are watching this podcast, how can they embrace the chaos that could be of college or of an early professional landscape?
Yeah. I think there's three things you got to do, really. I think especially when you're in college, the early, year of like getting out of the house, I think the first and most important thing is to realize that there's no perfect thing. Yeah. So we're all searching for the perfect person, the perfect class, the perfect career, the perfect major.
Yeah.
There ain't no such thing. Perfection is an illusion of our mind trying to bring order to life that has none. Perfection is an illusion because our mind tries to create order to this universe.
Yeah.
There is no order. It's all chaos, right? So what we do is we expect things to be perfect. So the first thing I think we should do is to recognize and accept that there's no perfect career or major. So if you're a college student today, is that the major that you have or studying right now, it may not be the place you're going to work in, or you're not going to use that major necessarily in the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 years for sure.
Even sooner, maybe.
Even sooner. So that's the first thing. Second is you have to stop overthinking. Stop overthinking about, what I should be doing next summer, what I should be doing the summer after that, and really be in the focus and the present moment right now. And the third thing is be curious, right? You got to learn. You got to ask people. You got to talk to people. One of the most important things I did I'll tell you a story. Yeah. So once I was at a big dinner. It was like a black tie dinner in New York City. I was working at Pfizer in those days, and it was a big, 600 people in the room. And this guy got this award, this very senior guy at a company called PepsiCo. He was a head of R&D at PepsiCo. And his name is Dr. Mahmood Khan. And I didn't know him, but I read about him. He was a doctor. And he was working at PepsiCo as the head of R&D and science. Yeah. So I go up to him, I'm like, hey, Dr. Khan, I'm Bob Miglani, Bob with Pfizer. I said, I'm curious, how does the doctor go to selling soda and chips at Pepsi? Right? I'm like, you're a doctor, dude, seriously. Right? And he goes, you know what? No one ever asked me that. It's a great question. And I said, yeah, I know, I'm kidding. He goes, no, but that's an interesting question because I'm trying to make PepsiCo products healthier. And I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting. I said, got a great story. Did you ever think about writing a book? He goes, you know what? My boss told me I should be thinking about writing a book. Wow. I'm like, great. I'm like, I've written a few books. He goes, let's have lunch. Yeah. He became one of my closest friends and mentors. Wow. Because I was curious about his life and his career. Yeah. I walked up to him and I said, hello. We hit it off. I asked him an interesting question. Yeah. I wasn't just like, hey, I love you. Take a picture with me and let me post it on my Instagram or LinkedIn. No, it was like a real authentic question, right? Yeah. And so we kind of became friends, and we were working on a book together. We ended up working on a book together. Yeah. Just didn't work out. But he became such a mentor and a friend and helpful, companion in my career. So you got to have curiosity. So if you're a college student, and when I was in college, anytime there was an executive or a corporate speaking or somebody from business coming into the campus, I would sit in the front row. Yeah. Because guess what? I would beat everybody to the up in the front.
Afterward, when it's over, you had that little.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, why would I sit in the back?
Yeah.
If you come to hear somebody speak,
you might as well get the most out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I would have my business cards printed.
There you go.
I would put my hand out and I'd say, I'd love to talk to you. Would you be open to advice? Can I call you once in a while for advice? Absolutely, Bob. Call me anytime. Yeah. I made some of the greatest connections because I was curious. I didn't sit around, wait on anything. I didn't know what I was going to do. Yeah. And then you got to get out there. Those are the things I would suggest a college student do today is be active, be engaged, be curious.
Yeah. And for one, that's an amazing story, I think. So there's so much to learn from that. And I say a lot of similar things where I think a lot of students get stuck in at least early college where they don't know, I came in as a bio major, I have to be a doctor. And then they start struggling and it's like, is this what's right for me? My whole thing is I don't recommend chasing the small, the super victories in the present. So for example, let's say there's two internship offers on the table, right? One is a $25 an hour internship working at a bank. But let's say you're good at finance, but your real passion is maybe, marketing and design. But this is really awesome opportunity to work for your favorite company, but it's unpaid and it's for this company. My advice is unless you need that money, and everyone's situations are different, chase what you're interested in, because that's what's going to actually take you further. I think if you take that finance internship where you know you're not going to really enjoy that, you're not really going to get, you're not naturally curious. Like that curiosity, you're not curious, but you're always going to look back on maybe, oh, I wish I would have taken that opportunity to do this. And the way that you kind of get these opportunities, as you said, is people. I think people is the number one most important asset students have in college, out of college, really wherever. Life is about people. For me, I had a 1.7 GPA after my first semester. I called my mom. I said, Mom, oh my gosh, like I feel like a failure. What do I do? I'm not going to be a doctor, all this stuff. And I don't have any older siblings, right? I have no older cousins to go back on. So I'm figuring this out kind of on my own. And she was like, honey, like, what do you like? What do you want to do? Yeah. And I was like, what do I want? I never really thought about that at the time. I was like, okay, what do I like? I love sports. Yeah. I love sports. Yeah. Basketball, football, played it all in high school. Yeah. I would watch a million of these, shows, content, all of that. Yeah. But in my head, I was like, if I'm not going to be an NBA player, then there's no career in that for me. At least we were raised that way.
Right.
So I figured that out, and it was, okay, now I'm curious about sports, and I'm good at speaking in people and relationships, so maybe there's a career in that. So what I did was, similar to you, there was a kind of like a career panel, and it was like the Maryland Athletics panel. And what did I do? I sat in the front row, and this one guy, Jacob Nicely, shout out to you, Jacob, if you're watching this, and he was talking about this internship marketing. It's unpaid, but it's an opportunity to work in sports, to work with people. And right when I got up, the first thing I went up to him, and I said, hey, this sounds an amazing thing. My name is Darsh. I'm super passionate about sports. I love people. I don't have any sports experience, but I would love to talk to you more about it. And what did it turn into? An internship that semester. Wow. So I think that really set my path.
That's cool.
Really down the reason why we're here today. So I think really being curious and leveraging people is like one of the biggest strengths. Yeah. But I think that's what I think of when I hear you talk about, being curious. Nothing's going to be perfect. And these kind of like these bumps in the road.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that's a great story. I love that story because you were like focused on your heart, not your head.
Yeah.
You got to get out of your head and get into your heart.
Focused on your heart, not your head.
Because the thing is that the heart is, once the heart is aligned on a purpose and a clear purpose and mission, the head will figure out how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, there's this part of your brain called the reticular activating system called the RAS. Okay. So do you ever see, like, somebody mentions to you a red Tesla, and then all you see on the road is red Teslas?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what that is it's the mind focusing on what you really want. The problem, and it's a system in our brain that filters out millions of messages the brain receives. Okay? Yeah. It's all in the personal development space. Everybody, so it's very well known. So what you have to do is you have to get your heart set on that one thing that you want. Yeah. The mind will filter out all the noise on how to get there. To figure that out. Yeah. So, for example, I was in college. We're talking to college students here. So I was in college. There was a coveted marketing internship I wanted. And there was lots and lots of people applying for it. And so I had a sales professor, and he was amazing. I loved this guy. He was a marketing research professor, sales professor, or whatever. And I was a poor Indian kid. I didn't have a suit, right? So my professor said to me, hey, I was trying to help. I was like, hey, how do I get this internship? How do I nail it? It was very competitive. It's the most coveted internship in campus. He goes, instead of just sending, your resume, and those days it was mailed in, or emails, whatever, right? So he goes, instead of mailing it, why don't you go show up and ring the bell at his company, go to his office, and give it to him. I'm like, yeah, but you could just mail it in, send it in. He goes, no, just go do it. So I borrowed a suit from my roommate. Yeah. And I loved my roommate. He was great. He's from Iceland. Jon, shout out to you. But he was one of my early mentors. And so I go and just show up. I go to the front desk and I go, hi, I'd like to see Mr. Campion, Matt Campion. Matt, shout out to you, my first boss. And she goes, what do you need, honey? Well, I want to drop off a resume to him. Well, did you want to mail it? I said, no, I'd like to just say hello and drop it off. So he's eating a sandwich. He comes out. He's like, hey, what's going on, He goes, oh, hi. And I shook his hand. I was so nervous. Yeah. And I shook his hand, and I gave him a resume. He goes, oh, thanks for stopping by. And I got the internship. Wow. Because I showed up. I showed him that I had initiative, that I wanted it, and I got it. So my heart was aligned. My head figured out how to do it. And it turns out 30 years later, I met Matt. I ran into Matt
Wow,
again.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
How? Where? How?
It was,
Where? Yeah.
you know, what happened was I was in Princeton at a meeting,
Okay.
and I was walking in the parking lot, and I was like, wait a minute, I worked in this building as an intern 30 years ago. So I shot a video on LinkedIn, and I said, this is the building where Matt Campion gave me my first internship, right? And I'm so grateful for Matt, and this is what I did. I told the story.
Yeah.
I posted on LinkedIn. I get a message on LinkedIn from Matt. And he goes, Bob, how are you?
Yeah.
Matt, I miss you. How are you? We caught up. And he said, what are you doing? Oh, Matt, I'm a motivational speaker. Really? My company is having a meeting. We need a motivational speaker.
Wow.
How much do you charge? And he hired me to speak at his company. That, you know, this was in 2020. It's crazy. So
crazy.
I got a speaking gig out of a LinkedIn post from talking about 30-year-old connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So, but point is like, you got to show up, you got to be engaged.
Yeah.
And if you're in college, if you rewind back to all of that, is that you got to be in the game. You know, you got to be in the arena.
Yeah.
If you're not in the arena, like, okay,
You're not gonna win nothing.
they're not going to win.
Yeah.
So show up, but you know, it was fun. It was really a lot of fun. I had a wonderful time. But I guess going back to your point is like, the heart is where there's the truth.
Yeah.
The head is confusing.
Yeah. Because there's always an objectively correct thing to do, right? Objectively, if you want to make a certain amount of money, sure, go do this career. Objectively, if you want to go to the best, you know, be an engineer, there's a best school. But if that's not what you know, only you know what you want on the inside, right? And it's the whole reason I'm doing this with Growth Street. I was I was having a great career at LinkedIn. I loved that. I could have went, to other companies, could have done more sales, kind of climbed that corporate ladder. But in my heart, I said, I want to help people. I want to be someone, and I want to make a real impact, because I really did feel like, for me, at least working at LinkedIn, I felt not replaceable per se, but it's you don't have that real human impact that I think is like what makes life beautiful.
Yeah.
And with this, I know just for fun, I would help so many students just get job internships. Even my own brother, like he was 4.0 smartest kid in his class, but he couldn't interview. And through that, just by being, his older brother, I would help him out. Then it turns into helping my friends. Then somehow I became the career help guy. In my fraternity, I became the professional chair, the one who would help everyone kind of grow professionally. And that wasn't me thinking, what's objectively like gonna make me the most money, or what's objectively the best career. No, it was what do I love, and if I do a good job enough, good things will happen. And now we're sitting here, in a studio, and I'm kind of creating this business, right? And I think that's one of the most amazing things, and that's why I'm kind of curious for you, right? You were worked in Pfizer for 23 years. Yeah. You did climb that ladder, and you became, you started off as a sales rep, and again, I remember seeing that you became the regional director of Europe regarding, the operations of Pfizer. So I'm so curious about what that journey was like for you, and then also how you made that transition from that to doing what you do now. Yeah. That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, it is. I was in sales, and I really enjoyed sales a lot. I was really good at it. I had a great mentor. I became a #1 sales rep, but I always wanted to travel the world. And that was one of my dreams. Is like, hey, I want to work in a company, work globally around the world. And so what happened was Pfizer had an international division at the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I wrote to the president of Pfizer. I was doing my MBA part-time. So I was working
at Pace University,
at
right?
Pace, yeah. So I was working downtown. I was part of my territory as a sales rep at Pfizer was Lower Manhattan. And then there was Pace University and also NYU. Pace, the classes were like 1 day a week. NYU was 2 days a week. So I'm not doing classes 2 days a week. I had to work. I had a full-time job, right? Yeah. So anyway, I went to Pace part-time. And then I had an old college professor who hooked me up with another professor he knew in Pace, MBA program. And I went to say hello. I'm like, hey, how you doing? He goes, Bob, anything I can do for you? I said, he said, I'd love to get a speaker from Pfizer. I'm like, I have an idea. I'm going to call the president of Pfizer International.
Wow.
Ask him if he could be a speaker in his class. Right?
That's crazy.
So I did. I called, and I sent him a note, and he said, yes, I'll do it. I called his assistant, and I remember her to this day. I love you, Joni. Joni is one of my favorite people in the world, his assistant. I remember her this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, of course, Mr. Nemeth would love to speak at this class. It wasn't even my class.
Yeah.
Right? So I go, hey, listen, the class is on this date, whatever. The speaking thing is on this date. Can I come pick him up? Because I had a company car. He goes, no. He has a driver. He has a car and a driver. He's an executive.
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
his number 2 guy at Pfizer, right,
Yeah.
at the time. And I'm like, well, can I ride in the car with him?
Wow. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So she goes, of course. So come. So I came. So I wanted to spend quality time with the guy.
You want to build that
A
relationship,
right?
Yeah.
So I get in the car. We're driving down Lower Manhattan from 42nd Street to Lower Manhattan Pace. And he's asking me about what you do. Oh, I'm sales rep. He goes, oh, sales, amazing. Important job, Bob. You learn the company, the customers, the competition.
Yeah.
He did the speech. It's fine. At the end, he's leaving back to his driver. And I'm like, sir, do you mind if I call you for advice once in a while? He says, no, call me anytime. I said, great, thank you. So next day, I called his assistant, Joni. Mm-hmm. Joni, thank you so much. Hooking it up. It was great. And by the way, I'll talk to you in 6 months because I'm going to graduate my MBA in 6 months, 8 months or whatever. And she goes, well, and I'm interested in coming into headquarters. And I think you need an MBA to move up the ladder.
Yeah.
She goes, well, did you talk to him about it? I said, not really. She goes, why don't you send him a letter and I will make sure he sees it.
Nice.
Okay. I said, fine. So I sent him a note. 2 weeks later, I get a call from a head of HR. My boss is impressed with you and wants me to meet you. I meet with the head of HR for like 3-4 hours.
Wow.
And he's like, I think we have something for you. I'm like, okay. I wasn't even looking.
Yeah.
I thought you needed an MBA. And it was like a whole job description. Like you had a finance MBA. I had none of that, right? I had sales experience. I was a sales rep.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, and I went to say hello to Joni. I went to hello in the office. I was there for the interview. I said hello to Mr. Nemeth. Mr. Nemeth, how are you? I just had this interview. It was great. Went well. He goes, thank you, Bob. Nice to see you. And good luck. And great. So I leave. I got a job offer.
Let's go. That's
doubled
incredible.
my salary.
Wow.
And doubled my salary. I knew nothing about what to do with it.
What was the role compared to sales?
Pricing. It was called. I'm like, I don't know anything about pricing.
Yeah.
What do I know about pricing?
Yeah.
Okay, but what they were doing was there was an opening because they were trying to change the function from a administrative function to a business function.
Okay.
And they needed somebody who understood products, who understood customers.
And you're right.
And
there.
I was the guy.
You were in the field.
So you
literally
get
doing
lucky
that.
because so is it luck?
You made your own luck.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is the point. So and turns out, so long story short, but that was the beginning of my corporate career. But I only got that because I had my heart in my place of being in a place that I wanted. Because what happens in your 20s, your early 20s is you make money. You're good.
Yeah.
You're good. You go out, you can play for drinks, you stay in an apartment. But if there's something dissatisfied, but you feel like you hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
And
So you're plateauing a little bit.
how do you break through that ceiling? You got to be bold. You have to be bold and you have to take chances and you have to make your opportunities. And you do that by taking action, calling people, getting engaged, in meeting people and being curious.
Yeah.
And that's kind of led to my career growth from there.
Wow. And I think, again, it's kind of funny you kind of alluded to you made your own luck because your book is called Make Your Own Luck. And kind of what I think of when I think of Make Your Own Luck is differentiating factors. What I tell people is the game has changed in the last 10 years. I was doing a bunch of research about, career development, getting jobs, internships, and things like that. And for one, hearing how you went that extra mile, right? It started off with you just delivering your resume in person. Then you are asking to be in the car. All these little things, those are differentiating factors, right? And it's kind of going that extra step. One thing I tell everybody is, if you just apply, with Easy Apply on LinkedIn, you Easy Apply on Indeed, the odds you get an interview or get an offer are so little to none. If you apply with a referral through a connection or somehow you know someone in the company, it's over a 70% higher chance you get an interview.
Yeah.
And that's like game changing, right? So it is so worth having that extra call, being a little bit different. For me, again, when I graduated college, I was a 2.9 GPA communication major from the University of Maryland. That's like the stigma with that is really, really bad. But my whole thing was every place I applied to, I spent so much time networking. I knew people from Google, LinkedIn, and these are all friends. My last guest, Zach Joyner, was my referral for LinkedIn, actually. Wow. One of my mentors. Yeah, he's an amazing guy. Shout out Zach. He was on the podcast last week. And it's knowing people and finding what makes you different and how can I phrase this better? It's leveraging your strengths to go out and get what you want, right? And that's what I think of when you say make your own luck.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious for you. Like, what do you? How do you make your own luck? You're a student. Let's say maybe you graduated college. Maybe you're a senior.
Yeah.
And you're now. Whoa, life is in front of you. I always say in the first 2 years of college, it feels like you're in college, you're having fun. But once you turn to a junior, now you have that like real life kind of vision, kind of going forward.
Yeah.
So how does a student make their own luck? How does someone do that?
I think there's a couple of things. One is you have to be curious. You have to always say, I'm curious about this. How does this work? How does this work? How does this work? And, so the key fundamental principle. You're listening?
I'm tuned in right here.
Don't be better. Be different. Because people always catch up to better.
Don't be better. Be different.
Because people always catch up to better.
Yeah.
What happens is if somebody is better than you, they're going to eventually skill up and be better and be better and be better. But they can't compete against different.
Wow.
Different, you're on the other side. Let me give you an example.
Yeah,
all right. So when I was at Pfizer in my career, I was in a tiny little department called pricing. There was 3 of us. The job, the department was in the 3rd building, the worst building. My office was behind a bathroom. I could hear everybody flush.
Wow.
Okay. It sucked. Okay.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I couldn't wait to get out of there because the place to be at Pfizer in those days was marketing. Everybody's wanting to be marketing. We're launching this product, Viagra, we're launching this product. And pricing was this little known function. So I couldn't get into marketing. And so I was like down on my luck. I was like, this sucks. I'm getting, my resumes are getting rejected. I can't get into it, whatever. Because they were hiring all these people from Wharton and all these schools.
Yeah.
Right? Not a kid from Ryder, right? Who kind of worked his way up through sales.
Yeah.
They were hiring Wharton grads or Harvard grads for a marketing department, right? So I couldn't compete.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I was really upset. And I'm like, all right, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go all in and be amazing at this little tiny niche. Niche. Follow a niche. Okay, a niche, which is like so small. But guess what? I'm going to have the massive expertise in it. I'm going to dominate that niche. No one is going to know more about pricing than this guy. Okay? So it was me and like 2 older bosses, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then guess what happened over time? Pricing became really important to the company. And who was presenting pricing strategies at 27, 28, 29 years old in the entire company to the senior leadership team? Me.
Yeah.
I would go see the president of the company almost on a weekly basis.
Wow.
Presenting. So I got access because he's like, who knows about pricing in France or whatever? Oh, Bob Miglani. Get Bob in here. We have a pricing issue in France. We have this issue in France. This issue in France. So everywhere you have to think, if I am of like, there's all this, if I'm commoditized, kind of like what you felt at LinkedIn, right? There's anybody who can kind of quote unquote do this job, right? Generally speaking.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that space. When everybody's going in this direction, you got to go the other way.
Zig on everyone's ass.
You got to go the other way because guess what? There's no competition. The key to success, startups and executives and young people fail when they follow the herd and they are in all this, they want to be where everybody else is. But guess what? It's so hard to get differentiated.
Yeah.
So go the other way, find a niche or an expertise and dominate that niche, even depending on how narrow it is, and be really, really good at it. Because once you do that, you're going to stand out.
Yeah.
That's the goal, is to be able to stand out at things.
How do you find that niche? Because for me, I think about, let's say you go to a Rider University, or Rutgers, or Maryland, wherever you really are. There's thousands of students, right? In your major, there's another hundreds of students. And I think everyone, again, has not the exact same goals, but you're in that major to learn the same thing, right? And the same way that, you went to hand deliver your resume, you wrote a handwritten letter about that position at Pfizer. How do you find that niche? Because you kind of, the way you describe it, you kind of stumbled into pricing because that's kind of how it happened. Yeah. And then you were here now so you could dominate. One thing that makes me curious is, how do you find your niche? Like, is it a self-awareness, a lot of reflection? Is it just by chance you end up there? How do you find that niche?
You ask a lot of questions. I mean, so let's just talk about the pricing story. So from pricing, I ended up creating a whole new function at Pfizer.
Wow.
Okay. That today is one of the most important functions of the company. It's called Global Health and Value. But in those days, we called it market access. But basically, what you have to do to find your niche, if you're starting out, is, so first of all, you have to really pay attention. You got to like read. You got to like be out there to understand what's going on in the world, business world. But the most important, I keep going back to is curiosity. You got to ask why. What's going on here? Why is it going on? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you a very simple example. So my wife is an eye doctor. She's an optometrist in town, right? And so I was sitting in her office, and she was like complaining to me about like how she was having trouble marketing to her patients, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you got to use video marketing. She was like, what do you mean? I'm like, video marketing is the thing.
It's a new thing.
It's
right
the thing.
now,
I
yeah.
mean, but this is again 10, 15 years
Okay,
ago.
okay.
This is like, and I learned it because I was promoting my books. So
Okay,
I
so,
learned all that, right?
Like,
So
what's another way of marketing my books? How can I get that out
So
there?
I was like, all right. So anyway, she's in a niche category. She's an optometrist, but she's in a niche category called myopia management. It's a very small niche, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I was trying to teach her how to do marketing. She's like, you just do it for me. Just do it for me. Do it for me. So it turns out that there was a whole need. And what I did was I created a whole marketing automation system for her. And guess what? That is now my startup. That's my business.
Wow.
I created it because I was curious. I'm like, I had a problem. You gotta find a problem that one or two people that you know have, and then try to not just find a solution, but really understand that problem. Like take that problem on and say, okay, this is the problem, and let me look into it. Let me learn about it.
Yeah.
And let me try to figure it out. Okay, let me give you another example. So a friend of mine, he's my co-author of the book. His name is Rehan Yarkhan. Rehan's a great guy. I saw him last week. He did his MBA, Columbia MBA. He's worth $500 million.
Oh, he just I saw you posted on Instagram, right? He just graduated from
Columbia Business School. He's worth $500 million.
Wow.
Something like that. It's crazy. Probably more. I don't know.
Shout out Rehan.
Rehan's an amazing guy. I love this guy. So we wrote about it in this book, Make Your Own Luck. So he was, so somebody had pitched him on an idea of a transportation business. So he's like, all right, whatever. I don't know anything about it. This is years ago, right? So he's like learning about the transport. He was curious.
Yeah.
He saw a problem with transportation, people getting around, right? So he just researched for 9 months, just studied the market of transportation, right? So he read books, he called taxi companies, just learned, and he forgot. And then after that 9 months, he went deep in, and then he's like, okay, fine, I learned enough about this. Okay, I'm done, right? I'm going to move on to something else, right? So then he's going on in his business. He's an entrepreneur doing other things. Then he's at a lunch, and this kid comes up to him and says, hey, I got a startup idea. I'd love for you to invest in my company. And he said, what's the idea? He goes, well, it's about transportation. You open up your app, and you can call a cab anywhere you want, And he goes, okay, that's interesting. I understand the market. Let's sit down. So he sat down. He knew everything about it because he had studied it.
For 9 months. Yeah,
for 9 months.
Yeah.
This is like 2 years before. Okay? So he invested $100,000 in this company, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay? But it was like a first investment. He was like, yeah, I'm investing it. That $100,000 is what made him $300 million.
Is it Uber?
No, Ola.
Wow.
Ola Cabs is the Uber of India.
Wow.
Okay? He was the first investor in Ola Cabs. And all because he was curious about a problem that had no business value at the moment. At the moment.
Wow.
Right? He was curious about the problem.
Yeah.
And he researched it. He thought about it. He thought about it, and learned. He was curious. Curiosity leads to hidden treasures. Curiosity leads to hidden opportunities. When you are not curious and you're just like, okay, whatever, then you're never going to find solutions. So have problems, understand problems, be curious. And that is where for college students today, right now, I would suggest for college students, go to as many conferences as you can. Find business conferences near me. If there's a conference in your town, major city, or online or whatever, go there. Go talk to people. See what problems people are dealing with. If you're in accounting, okay?
Yeah.
Forensic accounting is a niche, but it's booming. It's a niche, right? It's because people are trying to figure out companies get bought and sold. So again, go back to the idea of if you're a college student earlier in your career, be curious, find a problem. And there's problems everywhere.
Yeah, there are. I think for one, that's an incredible story. So to hear about, Rehan and what he did that's incredible. I think the big thing, again, my takeaway from there is curiosity is king from what I'm learning right now. Learning from you right now, Bob, is like, even my last week's guest, he mentioned curiosity, and I really am starting to to really understand the value of what that means. Because, there's a lot of different things you can be. You can be curious, you can be hardworking, a lot of different traits. But curiosity is kind of what spawns a lot of opportunity, is what it sounds like. So yeah, for me, I think when I reflect on my time, back at Maryland and curiosity, I would never, I think, be here without curiosity. I never would have worked in sales without curiosity. And I think curiosity doesn't have to be so big picture, right? Curiosity is, as a college student, can start small. For me, my first kind of level of curiosity was, all right, I was working as a marketing intern at Maryland. I would help with promotions regarding, football games, basketball games, cool promotions with fans, things like that. And I was wondering, I would see all these, like the whole stadium be filled. I'm like, wow, how do you fill a stadium with, that was me being curious. And I was like, how do you fill a stadium? Like, how do you make the product so good where people come from all over the country, pay so much money, sit courtside just to watch college kids play basketball?
Right.
I was so curious. And what that turned into was me saying, wow, like, that's all sales. Because I asked my mentor, Jacob Nicely, again, I keep referring to him. I was like, how does this work? And he was talking about how it's all sales. Like that's what sales does. And their goal is to get everyone in. They work with marketing to get that done. I was like, wow, sales sounds pretty interesting. Well, tell me more about it. And he was saying how it's all communication. It's more front facing. And then I sat there saying, wait, I like the sports part about sports marketing, but I don't love being behind the scenes. Talking to people, getting people to commit to being there, being part of that sounds interesting to me.
Right.
So what did I do with that? I talked to him. I networked with a ton of people in DC, and during COVID, this is what I did. Michelle just gave me this advice. She said, now is a time where everything's virtual. So you have so much access to getting to talk to people because people are dying for human connection.
Yes.
During COVID, all people want to do is talk to people. We're all locked in our homes. We're on Zoom every day. All we want is to like meet people, meet new friends, meet new relationships, even new mentors or mentees. Yeah. So what I did was my personal mission was to have a contact with every single one person with every single sports team in the NFL and the NBA.
Wow.
After 2.5 months, just off of cold approaching on LinkedIn, I would see maybe like 80 messages a day. I would pick a team for the day.
Yeah.
So today was Dallas Cowboys Day.
Yeah.
I'm going through their entire business roster of their employees. Hi, my name is Darsh. I'm a college student at the University of Maryland. I'm really curious about what you do. I think, and I'll kind of go down that hole.
Yeah.
And what that turned into 2 months later was now I had a genuine connection with at least one person in every single team. And that will turn into me now meeting presidents. I've seen championship rings from the president of the Milwaukee Bucks, the Los Angeles Lakers. Wow. And it started off because I met some sales rep in inside sales. Yeah. But that's curiosity. Absolutely. And then what that turned into was an internship for me with DC United, the MLS team in Washington, D.C. And then it kind of kept spiraling from there. And for everyone watching at home, I really think about how can you leverage your curiosity to turn it into an opportunity. It's okay, what sounds cool to you? It's like that simple. Yeah. What sounds cool? Yeah. Is it marketing for a fashion brand? Is it sales? Is it computer science, going to like a hackathon? What sounds fun? What sounds curious and interesting? Go try it. Ask a question. And the next thing you know, like your friend Rayhan, like yourself, like myself, you look back 2 years later, wow, that one conversation, because I was just genuinely curious, changed the entire landscape.
Yeah, no, I love that story because it shows heart over the head. Like, you didn't know there was a job.
Nope, no idea.
You're like, I don't know if there's a job or not. I'm just like, this is really interesting to me. Yeah. Like, how does this work? Like, that is the great question. See, the thing is, people often say, so like, let's say, for example, if you're in college or you meet somebody, they're like, oh, what do you do? Right? Yeah. And they tell you what they do. And usually the conversation stops. You have to ask one or two more questions. I'm challenging you out there to ask one or two more questions.
Let's do a mock conversation right now.
So
you're approaching me.
I'm approaching you. Hi, Darsh. How are you? What do you do?
So right now, I'm acting as if I'm a student, right? Or, okay.
No, you're the executive that came in from out of town or whatever.
Great. Yeah, so currently I'm a regional director of sales at LinkedIn.
That's awesome. So how did you get that job?
Yeah, it's actually a crazy story. Out of college, my mom's best friend, she saw LinkedIn for the first time right when it launched. She thought it was a really cool company. So she had a job there very early on, just hands-on being involved there. Yeah. And she told me, this is a great company, you should intern here. Yeah. And this is a long time ago, right? So I interned there, and that's kind of how I got started. And next thing I know, I've been here for 20 years, and now I'm working at LinkedIn.
That's amazing. So how does it work? Tell me about LinkedIn for a second, or your job. How does it work? How do you reach out to customers. Who are your customers? How does it work? How do you get revenues in the company?
Yeah.
What is your drivers? Is it just membership, or is it like, do you have corporate sponsors? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. LinkedIn's whole mission is bringing economic opportunity to all members of the global workforce, right? So the idea is we want to get people to where they want to be in their careers, whether it's through connections, whether it's through jobs, through networking, whatever that is. And we make money by offering different services, right? So one, it's, AdSense, by selling ads to different companies. But we also make money selling products, LinkedIn Talent Solutions, LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, all these different things. And where I'm involved is I sell LinkedIn Learning. So basically I try to, increase other companies like learning skill, internal development, HR, and the internal community through that. But let's pause here.
Yeah.
So that's exactly how you guys should do it.
Yeah.
Ask those follow-up questions.
How does it work? And then go deeper. Go once. You got to go. See, this is surface. Most people are talking at the surface.
Okay.
You've got to go deeper. You got to say, number one, you have to ask, what's your story? Guess what? Everybody likes to talk about themselves.
It's true.
So ask about their story. Say, how did you get to where you are? It's fascinating. And people will, no one asks them. No one asks, hey, how'd you get to where you are? Second, how does it work? Like, what does it work? And then the third question is, I'm curious, what is your advice to your younger self? Not to me, but to your younger self, okay? If you were to do it all over again,
what would you do differently?
What would you do differently? Or what would you do? Yes, I would do all day long. And then, and then the fourth one, and then as you're leaving.
Yeah, okay.
Do you mind if I ask you advice once in a while? Sure, Darsh, give me a call anytime.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, what's your number? Oh, yeah, let me get your text. Boom.
And you're in there.
You're in. And it's not about, and the thing is, you can't fake it.
Yeah, it has to be genuine.
You got to be genuine. And so I'll give you a little tip here. So I did a thing where I taught a class. And so when you go to a big event, a lot of people freeze. And you know what they end up doing? They huddle around the three people that they know.
Yeah.
And they just hold their little drinks in their hand, and they're just like walking people around. And here are $1 million walking around, all around you, okay? So you've got to do is you got to break from the pack, right? Again, don't be the same, be different. So that means don't be here, be somewhere else.
Zig with everyone's acts.
Right? And then go around and say hello to people. And people standing with nobody, they're welcoming these people. So ask those 4 questions. Hey, I'm Bob. This is what I do. What's your name? What do you do? Great. How did you get into it? Fascinating. Interesting. Oh, wow. Interesting. Curious. And then you go on to the next person. That's what real networking is.
Yeah.
Is when you're asking somebody genuinely about what they're doing, what their story is, how does it work, and then you move on to the next person and the next person, next person. And you do it in a genuine way. It's actually very productive because you get to learn a lot.
Yeah, when you're actually learning, like even if there's no relationship that comes out of that, you just learned an entire story, an entire background, and you got advice out of this person.
Absolutely. And then do a follow-up. You got to write back. You got to go on LinkedIn and say, hey, amazing to meet you the other day.
Yep.
And, so it's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it. I met a guy once at an event, and because I did this thing. He became a friend. And, because I built a relationship with him or whatever. So I would post a lot on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
Videos. He saw my video once. He goes, Bob, I'm going to be in Princeton. You want to meet up? I'm starting a new business. I'd love for you to get involved. I'm like, okay. He goes, so I meet him. He's like, yeah, this billionaire is creating this new company, and they need a guy like you to be here.
Yeah.
And head up our office in Princeton. I'm like, really? So anyway, it turns out I'm like, I wasn't really interested. I'm like, okay, maybe not. So they hired me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to do it. He goes, well, we'll double whatever you want to pay, what you think.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll work.
Worth a shot.
I'll work a shot. I'll work a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
So I ended up working for this billionaire. I flew on his jet.
Wow.
And we flew. And anyway, my point is that all because of a connection and
a simple conversation.
Simple conversation. One thing leads to another, but you've got to be in it. You can't wait for stuff to happen to you.
You gotta have that. You gotta just say hi.
You can't wait. You gotta say hello.
Wow, I think that's like usually the clear blueprint out for how to really network and I think now people are so scared because I think the whole COVID situation made it very not as comfortable with that whole organic, and especially with technology, right? We all have our phones right here, and this right here makes it 10 times harder.
Yeah.
Because of this, human interaction now is 10 times scarier, less frequent, and all of that, right?
Yeah,
but what you do is, that's why what you're saying is so much more powerful, you watch basketball or no?
A little bit.
Okay, so there's this thing in basketball called the alley-oop. Are you familiar with
Yeah,
what that
yeah,
is?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So what I always tell everyone in every interview is there's an alley-oop, a hidden alley-oop, and it's the play when you watch it on TV. It's the play. It's the wow play. It's the take a picture. It's a poster play, right?
Yeah.
And what this is let's say you have an interview, right? What's the first question that's asked in the interview?
Tell me about yourself.
No, it's how are you?
Okay.
And what will most people say? If I ask how are you, what are you gonna say?
People say fine, but I don't.
People say, oh, I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah.
Missed opportunity.
Right.
What you should say is, hi. I'm doing. So ask me. Ask me right now.
How are you doing?
Bob, I'm doing great. today I'm recording a podcast with someone I think is really smart.
Yeah.
This weekend I'm going to the city. I'm watching a big soccer match at this really cool sports bar. And then my brother came back from college, so it's a really good time for me. How are you?
I'm amazing. Not as well as you, though.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, but then a lot of the times is you're gonna respond with with you telling me about
story.
yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's the lob. So that's the first part of the alley. That's the alley.
Yeah.
Then you go to the end of the interview or the networking call, whatever this is. And then when you're wrapping up the call, when you say after, you ask questions, you give advice, the last thing you do is you say, thank you, right? But then you end the thank you with, thank you, Bob. I really appreciate it today. I really learned so much. Thank you for letting me ask these questions. It was a great time. Before we go, I really just wanted to wish you luck with your daughter's dance recital because you mentioned that earlier.
Right.
Or you'll tell me, Darsh, I hope you have a good time at that sports bar. Oh, who's playing again?
Right.
And then it's like, okay, now you just made it. For one, the alley makes the conversation personal. Now the whole conversation is like a cool, comfortable atmosphere. But then at the end, it's like, wow, he's actually paying attention to me. Like we're not just online or networking, like just for that. No, we're actually we're people now. Maybe we're friends now, right? We're starting that bond. And as you were saying, that thank you, it's having that personal touch changes the entire game. Because that's such a missed opportunity, even in these networking calls, right? Like these networking conversations. Yeah. For me, it's when I go up to someone, when you ask, hi, how are you? Always say how you're doing, and say all of it.
Yes.
Because now you're letting them in.
Yeah.
What I always say to everyone too is, when you have a bunch of close friends, right? I'm sure. And I have a bunch of best friends, who from all over, right? And the way you create best friends is not by doing random things. The second one of you opens up about your actual life, how you are, what makes you on the inside who you are. Once you're vulnerable, now we're friends, right? Now that bond is built. And that's how networking works. It's all human nature.
Absolutely.
Like, let's say you interview 10 people for Hoot, right?
Yeah.
For your startup. You're not going to remember exactly every single detail every single person said about their experience. No. But what are you going to remember? How they made you feel when the call was going on and when it was over. 100%. So it's leveraging human nature to make yourself that differentiator. If you're the only guy who connects with me personally, and I'm interviewing 50 kids or 50 students or whoever, I'm going to remember you and we talk about who I liked.
Right.
Because now you're almost like I'm your champion because of how I feel about you. And that's the key to, I think, at least networking. So mixing what you were saying, I think your blueprint is like literally, if someone's going to a networking or a conference call, watch this back because you follow those 4 questions.
That's it.
You just learned, and now you have a relationship. Then you add that personal touch, and you're in there.
That's it. And then if you can have a sort of chemistry exchange by laughing at something, and sort of jokingly, doing this, you want to be remembered. Yeah, that is the key. And the way to being remembered is emotion, not here, not the head, but the heart. Yep. You got to get to the heart. Someone says, exactly to your point, someone says, oh, I just came back from college. I was on text the other day, Somebody texted me, and I just met him at an event. This is like yesterday. So I met him at a friend's house a couple of months ago, and he had sold his company, and I was like, okay. So I'm like, he's like, yeah, tell me what you're doing. It's cool. Let's meet up. Okay, and we never met up, but we had a quick call together, right? And then I was like, I was in his neighborhood recently, and I said, hey, I'm going to be in your neighborhood. You got a minute to meet for coffee? He's like, no, I can't. I got all this stuff going on. I'm like, no worries, man. And then I said, what about next week? How's next week? He told me, he's like, oh, what's about next week? Next week I'm out of town. He goes, let's meet up because I'm taking my daughter looking for colleges. Yeah. Right? And I said, oh, sounds good. Right? Then I said, wait a minute. How can I, let me just ask him. Say, by the way, I just want to let you know, my daughter's at Purdue. If it's a college your child is looking into, happy to make the connection. And he wrote back, so nice of you. Yes, my daughter is looking at Purdue. Wow. I'll be in touch. And so I'm like, this is a human to human connection.
Now you just found your link. That's the link.
And it's being genuine. It's
Yep.
not like I'm trying to like build a relationship to do something with this guy. I don't know.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
You don't
yeah,
know. You just
yeah.
want to be a good person. But the way to be remembered is to be different.
Yeah.
Is to do a little bit, be different and go a little bit deeper. Go deeper into the niche. Go
Yes.
a little bit deeper. I had one of my first hires in my company. I posted an ad for a marketing associate, and I didn't even have an office.
Yeah.
I was working in the back of my wife's office,
There you go.
little hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And so I posted the ad on Indeed. So this
Yep.
is something a lot of young people do. You look at ads on Indeed, right? I kid you not. I had like 130 resumes.
Wow.
Okay. College graduates, marketing degrees, 130 resumes for a marketing associate job. Okay. And so I'm like, how can I even look at these resumes? Right. I can't even look at it.
Yeah.
So I'm like looking at them slowly. And then I get a call. My wife's office gets a call. Apparently at Indeed, you got to put the location. Okay. Because it was a virtual job, but you can put the location. So it defaulted to my wife's office, her practice, her optometry practice. So somebody called the front desk looking for me. And I'm like, who's this? And he goes, this girl, Hannah, shout out to Hannah. Hannah called and I'm like, okay, who's this person? So I'm like, all right, I'll call her back. And she's like, hey, you posted this job. I'm like, where did you find me?
Yeah.
Right? She goes, well, I just
yeah.
Googled it. I looked you up. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
I saw another Miglani and I thought, okay, this, that, and the other. So do you have this job? I'm like, are you here? And do you live in this area? And she goes, no, I'm in Dallas, but I'm moving to the area. I'm like, when? She goes, whenever you want. Like next week, right? And I'm like, okay, let me interview you. So I interviewed her on the phone, whatever. It was fine. And then I forgot about it. I'm like, we got busy or whatever. And then she called me again and she texted me. And then she's like, so what are we doing? You want me to come in? You want me to do an interview? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on it.
Yeah.
But I was like, sure. So she shows up and it's like she's disheveled hair or whatever. And she's got long nails. And, I think I could see some tattoos, but I don't remember offhand. But long nails kind of like, dude, like I was hiring a sales marketing person. I grew up very, sort of traditional.
Class traditional, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
traditional. I was like, oh, it's not going to work out, whatever. But she was like engaged. She was there. And then I had my wife, Shivali, interview her. Shivali, just talk to her, whatever. I don't think it's going to work out. She doesn't have that like data. I want her to represent my brand.
Yeah, it's your company. You want someone to represent your company, yeah.
Right. So I'm like, I'm not sure. So my wife's like, no, she's young. They all have long nails these days. It's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
And then so I'm like, all right, let me think about it. So I'm like, I'll let you know. And then she called me again and again, and I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. At part-time.
Yeah.
And so today she is my director of sales. She's my, it was my first, real hire, full-time hire. And she basically does all our sales and marketing.
Wow.
And so, and she's like, we smile at this story because when we go to exhibits and conferences, guess what? Our customers are women and our customers have long nails and our customers have tattoos. And so everyone comments on my, on Hannah's nails and her tattoo. Like everybody sees that. And she comments on theirs. And so it's a great way to build a relationship.
Yes.
I was wrong from my mentality.
Yeah.
But guess what? This kid, young, called, engaged, built a relationship, followed up, and she was persistent.
She showed up.
She showed up. And it's about being remembered.
Yeah.
Right? Like I remember her because she made me remember her.
Yeah. She did. Yeah. You didn't have a choice.
I had no choice. I'm like, I gotta remember her.
Seriously. Wow. That's like, I mean, when I think of that, it's like, now people know watching is, if you want something, this is that is, and like, this is how you go and get something, right? And maybe it's not going to work out every time, but she became like, that's the definition of memorable, right? Like now every time, like, again, 130 resumes. Yeah. And one person out of all 130 people called you 4 or 5 times, showed up to New Jersey.
Nobody else called.
Yeah.
Gosh, nobody else called.
And she didn't call just once. She called 4 times.
I mean, that's how I got my job at Pfizer.
Yeah.
I was in college. I graduated college as a marketing major, right? If you're any marketing majors out there, shout out. Marketing major. Okay. I had I had good grades. And so I applied to a job at Pfizer. I got a rejection letter. I got a rejection letter.
Okay.
I don't know if do you know this story?
No, I don't.
I'm
excited to hear
so I got a rejection letter.
Yeah.
So it said, Bob, thank you so much. We don't hire, you're too young, basically. They didn't say that, but it said, and it said, whatever. So I was living in my parents' house. And so I put the desk, I was like throwing it in the trash or whatever. The next day, it was still there. I'm like, there's a phone number. It said, Bob, you're no good. We're not hiring you. It was like Hank Allen or something, VP of sales, Pfizer. And it was a phone number, 212, whatever. So I'm like, all right, you know what? There's a phone number. Let me call him.
Yeah, give it a chance.
Let me call.
Yeah.
Let me call. So I called and I got his assistant. And he goes, what can I do for you, honey? And I said, well, I'd like to talk to Mr. Howland. Why?
Yeah.
Well, he sent me this very nice letter. Okay.
Yeah.
And what does the letter say? It says I don't have a job. Okay. So well, you have your answer, honey.
Yeah.
I said, well, I just want a chance. I'll work for free. Okay. No, honey, I'm sorry. It's not, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. So I'm like, okay, it's done. So a couple of days later, I'm like, I called her once. I'll call her again. So I called her again. Hi, it's me again. What can I do for you?
Wow.
Gosh, I called her every single day for a month.
Oh, you're kidding.
She goes, okay, I'll give you 5 minutes. I got 5 minutes with Mr. Allen. He goes, okay. I said, I'll work for free. I just want a shot. I was a poor kid. I didn't have a suit to my name. I made no money. I just graduated college. I was sitting at home, my parents' house. I hated living in my tiny little room in my parents' house. So I'm like, I wanted to work. I want to make money. I was tired of being in debt. I had college debt. My sisters were going to college. I was going to support them in college. And so he's like, you got a shot, right? So he goes, okay, I'll tell you what. Show up in our Clifton, New Jersey office at Pfizer on this date, and you'll get an interview. So it's like, 30 days later. It was a month later. So I'm like, great, I got an interview. So now I had to prepare. So I'm like, it was just for a sales job. Yeah. Right? So, you could just walk in, but let's talk about preparation, right? Preparation meets opportunity, right? They don't say that. So I looked up the 5 best books on sales. Yeah. Okay? I bought them. And I actually got the library, right? And so I didn't have to buy them. So you don't have to spend money. You could be thoughtful about it, right? Yeah. I read them. I distilled 10 most important traits of the most successful salespeople. I wrote it on a piece of paper. And then I made slides. And I showed each trait and how I have those traits. Wow.
This is for your 5 minutes. This is your 5 minutes.
This is for my, yes.
Okay, so when you had that 5 minute opportunity.
No. This is for my interview coming up.
Okay.
That was so the 5 minute thing. I said, give me a shot.
And then he said yes.
He said yes. Okay. So go interview with the regional manager, regional sales manager.
This interview, now you're creating a slideshow.
Yes. Now I'm supposed to go for this interview. Okay. With this regional manager face to face.
Wow.
I prepared a slide presentation. And I said, so he goes, hi, welcome, how are you? I said, great, how are you doing? Sat down. I said, he said, what do you have there? I said, I'll have a presentation. He goes, okay. I said, well, I just want to share with you top 10 reasons to hire Bob Miglani.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Wow.
And I said, first of all, let me just say, I read these books. So again, thoughtful, right? I read these books. I learned that the traits of most successful people are this. And I want to demonstrate to you, I have these traits. Okay, go ahead. And I went through it one by one. It's persistence, and I got these traits working at the Dairy Queen. I had a Dairy Queen family business. Yeah. I didn't have that much experience. But I had the research internship that I had. So anyway, I wrote one by one. I went through his traits, and I said, okay, so have I demonstrated to you that these traits are important, and I have these traits? And he goes, yes, you have. I said, well, do I get the job?
You said it right, just like that. Wow.
Because I'm a sales guy, right? I got to close the sale.
Close the deal, yeah.
Do you want me or not?
Yeah.
You got to tell me you want me or not. Okay? I don't like this ambiguity. All right?
Yeah.
Right?
You want to hear back a week.
What am I doing? What am I doing? What are we doing here? You want me, I want you. What are we doing?
That's surreal.
Right? So he goes, I like the closing, but can I ask you a few questions first? I'm like, sure. So we interview for an hour, and then he goes, okay, can you wait outside for a couple hours? I'm going to have somebody else come and interview you, but they're in New York right now. I'm like, sure. That person came. I sat outside. I'm like, what's going on? So the person came. I did the same thing. That night, I got a job offer. My first job offer for Pfizer, and after a rejection letter. Yeah. You got to understand. I got rejected.
Yeah, rejected, yeah.
I took that rejection, turned it into I was one of the youngest people ever to be hired, right, in the sales organization at that time. Right now, they do it more. But again, it came out of being prepared, being, communicating clearly, having heart, being into it. And like, I didn't know anything. I was a poor kid who worked at a Dairy Queen, dude.
Yeah.
I went to Ryder. What do I know?
Yeah.
Okay. But you got to put the work in, and you got to be different. You got to stand out in some way.
Wow. And I think, for one, that's an incredible story. And the number one takeaway I have from that is, especially right now and today, the way the jobs are nowadays and internships, people always are saying, the market sucks, it's so hard. If everyone did what you just did with all their rejections, I promise you they would have a different outcome. And I'm not saying that it would work for every single time you would do it, but that's a story of like persistence, right? And Hannah did the same thing.
Yeah.
That's what, but maybe why you saw that little twinkle in her eyes.
I did.
You saw yourself in her.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And that's what it takes sometimes. Like, the best things don't come easy, right? If you want to climb Mount Everest, you want to climb the tallest mountain in the world, it's not supposed to be easy.
No, it's not supposed to be easy. It's actually, you're supposed to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
So one of the lessons we wrote, Rayhan and I wrote in this book, Make Your Own Luck, is you got to do the hard. You have to take the hard path.
Yeah.
And,
I agree.
And the reason is, it's like, you have weights, right? Anywhere, right? You're weightlifting. So what happens is you get tension when you do something hard. And tension and resistance is the only way to grow the muscle. So, right? Tension and resistance is the only way to grow the muscle. And the mind muscle requires tension and heart. So you got to do what is hard. When you do what is hard, the muscle will grow.
That's how you grow.
That's it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the biggest thing, like Michelle told me too, or she's one of my original mentors, is if you're in a space with a lot of people, right? Let's say you're at a job. Maybe there's 10 people in your same exact role. We all have one manager. Your manager's gonna say one day, "Here's a hard task. I know it's a little bit harder. It's you don't have to do it. Do we have any volunteers? Put your hand up.
Yeah.
Put your hand up. Volunteer. Take the hard task. For one, it's gonna make you so much stronger. You're gonna learn by doing. I always say seek discomfort.
Yes.
When you seek discomfort, good things happen. Nothing will happen if you don't leave your house, right? A bird can't learn how to fly if it doesn't leave its nest. If it never takes that first jump, you're never going to learn how to fly. Yeah. You're not going to learn how to ride a bike if you don't have those training wheels, right? So I think that's the biggest thing is seeking discomfort. And as you were saying, I think the biggest thing that I tell people to do now is do the hard thing, but take the uncomfortable step, right? Yeah. Like, as you were saying in these conferences, it's probably so nervous for a 21-year-old kid, a 20-year-old kid, a sophomore, a freshman who goes to a career fair to go up to a random stranger and say, "Hi, my name is Joseph from." Yeah. It's gotta be hard.
That's right.
Keep doing it every time.
That's right.
And you're gonna look back on it 2 years later and say, "Wow, look, I can talk to whoever now."
Exactly.
Right. Even myself, my first interview, man, like I was shit scared, dude. I was like, "Oh my god, how am I supposed to talk to someone about what I'm doing?" Like, I have to dress the suit, I have to shake their hand properly. I'm watching YouTube videos how to do a good interview. And now, I look back 4 or 5 years later, my first job was at Chick-fil-A. You did Dairy Queen, mine was Chick-fil-A.
Oh, wow, that's
so
awesome.
It's the same thing.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I look back on it now, was it 6-7 years ago? It's like, and now I teach kids how to interview.
Yeah.
Like, now that's my thing.
Right.
So it's work that uncomfortable muscle, and next thing you know, that's your biggest flex.
That's right. That's right.
And it all starts with, you all start from something. We're all a big block of marble at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Keep chipping out what you want to work on. Next thing you know, now you're Michelangelo, whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, and today it's not that, people, so two things I hear today is that, there's not a lot of jobs out there. You don't need a lot of jobs. You need one.
Yep. Right?
So remember that. You just need one. Number two is, statistically speaking, the more you get out there, the more the chances of success.
Yeah.
And third, very practical thing. I'll give you a very practical thing. I'm in sales and marketing, right? So I'm pitching all the time. So I use LinkedIn all the time. All the time. And what I don't do on LinkedIn, hey, I want to tap into your network. Hey, whatever. I write a thoughtful message to connect with somebody.
Give an example.
Hi, I'm Bob. I run a startup in healthcare. I'm an ex-Pfizer guy. Wrote a couple of books. I grow when I help others grow. Let me know if there's anyone in my network you want to tap. Happy to make an intro to you. Happy to make an intro. Okay?
Providing
that is my
direct
message.
value to them without any benefit
You got to give, man. You got to give first in order to receive.
Yep.
Okay? So I always say, hey, if there's anybody in my network you want to. So again, people are like thinking of themselves like, hey, I want to go to somebody else and this, that, and the other, right? So that's the first thing. Second is, I send a video.
On LinkedIn.
I use Vidyard integration with LinkedIn. I use Vidyard all the time. Vidyard is awesome. It's like Loom. You heard
Okay.
of Loom or video?
I've not heard of it. No.
Okay.
Now I'm curious.
Dude, video art is a game changer. Okay. First of all, you take a video, you go on it, video art, and it embeds your video into an email, okay, or into LinkedIn, okay, and it's integrated also with HubSpot.
Yeah.
So we do our sales and marketing that way.
Okay.
Okay. So what we do is we record a video. So I did this recently. There was a guy I was trying to reach. I emailed him bunch of times, didn't anything. So I said, let me go through LinkedIn. So I recorded a video. Said, hey, Jeff, how are you? This is Bob. I've been trying to get a hold of you. And I want to give you value by sharing with you about what we do and how we can help you in your business. And it was more specific.
Yeah,
okay?
of course.
But thanks very much. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.
The lighting sucked. I was in a terrible place. I was like in some room, some office somewhere, and I just did it. I just did it.
Yeah.
And hit send. He writes back, love to connect. Here's my email. Send me a date. Send me some dates. Boom, we got a meeting. Okay? I do this now all the time. I tag people, but you want to do it thoughtfully. So if you're on LinkedIn, you want to connect with somebody, always say, hey, I wanted to share this article with you about your industry.
That's a big one.
So if I want to get to know Darsh, right, and he's a podcaster, right, I'm going to say, I'm going to read something about podcasting, the best practices from, let's say, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Let's say Joe Rogan podcast, or like I listen to All In podcasts. I love All In, those guys.
Yep.
So let's suppose they had something valuable to say about podcasting. I would find something about that, article or video or
that's
clip.
your way into
I would say, gosh, would you be interested in knowing what the best podcasters do? Damn straight.
Of course, yeah.
Of course.
Why wouldn't I? Yeah.
Why would you, right? So I'm sharing that. I'm giving you value, right? And that's a key principle in life, is when people get something, they can't help but to reciprocate.
Yes.
They want to give you something. It's actually one of my favorite books in the world. It's called Influence by Robert Cialdini. And it's a principle in life. It's called power of reciprocity, or the law of reciprocity. It's like, do you ever go to a store or something and you get candy or something?
Yeah.
You know why they do that?
Why?
Because they feel like you're going to feel like you owe them something, and you're going to end up buying something. Okay? So when people give you free stuff, the intention is for you to purchase something. Because human nature is, I got to pay you back, man. You hooked me up with that way. You gave me something for free.
Yeah.
So if on LinkedIn, if you're trying to make connection on LinkedIn, you got to give. Value. Help them with a problem that they have, so they feel that you are a source of value to that problem. You're going to help me solve that problem.
Yeah.
You're my guide.
Yeah.
That's what you want to be.
And I think the biggest thing too is, as you're saying, the whole effect on human nature is, I always say, I'll actually rewind a little bit, because what you said, I think I really liked. How you said, is there anyone in my network that could be of value to you? The reason that I love that is because you're helping them without anything kind of helping you in return. So now, let's say you ask me that. Let's say I message you, Bob. I'm like, hey Bob, is there anyone in my network that can help you? The way you're going to look is, Darsh is asking for nothing from me. He's only asking you if you want something from me.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, now I know he's not asking for anything from me.
Yeah.
Just giving me love and support, right?
That's it.
And that's so real, because a lot of times people are probably, I'm sure, have said yes, or someone I'd love to talk to.
Yeah.
And then the way you stay connected is with these personal messages, right? And I love that, because one thing, so when I went on the whole networking thing I told you about with all the sports teams, is I had this huge spreadsheet. Who are they? What company they work for? What did we talk about last time? What's their industry? What's their role? I would take notes on every single call. They couldn't see me, I was virtual, so I would remember, I'd record it, and I'd write it down all after. And then every couple of months, what I do now is I had a thing on Notion. It's like
I know Notion.
Yeah, Notion.
Yeah.
There was a function where every 3 months I can get like a ping if I haven't updated this row in the sheet. And then I was like, it's 3 months since I talked to them. Let me go and send them a message. Let me go find an article and send it to them.
Amazing.
And that's what I do. And that's how you keep your network kind of continuous, right?
Yes.
And
it's like sales.
Yeah,
it's like sales leads, right?
Different touch points.
You have a hot lead, and they can become cold.
Yep.
So how do you keep them warm? You give them love.
Yeah.
You give them energy. You send them something. Give them content. It's all about content these days.
And the biggest thing that I've learned is people buy from people they like.
Yes.
The same thing applies to networking, right? People buy from people they like. People will network with you and become friends with you and build a relationship with you. They'll mentor you if they like you. It's that simple. Be someone, not you have to be liked by everybody, but be someone that's good, and if they like you,
That's
you're
right.
good.
That's right.
Right. That's what everything. That's what I was talking about the job thing, where I was saying how if you can make that personal connection in these jobs, the alley oop, now you're in there. Now you're gonna probably get the offer to get to the next round at least, right? So it's really finding. I think the big thing that we're learning here, we're talking about is the power of like human connection.
Yeah.
I think curiosity is the first part, and then I think human connection, right?
And one other thing I would add is that if you're in the job market today, right? If you're in your 20s and you're saying, I want to get ahead or I want to get a job, right? You got to become an expert at something. Let me give you a simple example, right? Excel, right? I hate Excel, but but I hired people who are really good, for example, at Excel. Yeah. I want them to make Excel walk the dog.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
But here's why. So here's why. Because I don't have that capability, and I want to look good with my boss, right? So it's very important when you do interviews today, is you demonstrate an expertise in an area where that your manager may not have that expertise, because they're gonna be like, I want to hire this kid because he's gonna make me look good.
You're bringing value.
You're bringing a lot of value to me. Because I need somebody, like Excel is the simplest thing.
Yeah.
My 16-year-old, I've said, you must master Excel by the time you graduate high school. She's taking classes on Udemy or whatever it is. Like, I got her classes on it. I'm like, you need to make Excel walk the dog. Because every first job is going to be a basic job. Yeah. But if you're going to stand out by saying,
you have these skills.
You say the following, say, Mr. Whoever or Mrs. Whoever hiring, I can make Excel walk the dog. And I'm going to be adding value to you. Any number crunching, give them to me. I love it.
I'll take care of it.
I'll take care of it. I got you. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
You're hired because I have that problem.
Made my life easier.
Made my life easier. Dude, most of this time when we're telling ourselves on an interview is we're saying, help me get this job.
Yeah.
What we should be saying is, how can I help you get your next job?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
That's what the interviewer cares about. The interviewer cares about keeping their job, making more money, supporting their family, and growing in their career. Yep. And they're thinking about hiring you to help them with something that they can't handle, or that they like, just take this off their plate for me.
Wow, I think
Excel is the simplest thing. But what I mean by that is, like, people are PowerPoint's easy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You gotta do what's hard.
Yeah, let's keep going back to doing what's hard.
You gotta do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, before, I think we're kind of getting into wrapping up here. The one thing I'd love to ask from you is, for one, we had so much nuggets of information. I want you to just like speak to the audience now, like not necessarily like directly to them, but in the sense of where, people have probably been tuned in who are watching this show right now, and they're probably like, wow, Bob's done so many amazing things, so much amazing information. What are the 3 biggest takeaways you have for a student or someone who's fresh out of college to where do these things and whatever goals you may have, this will help you get there? What are some just overall like advice you have for the young generation right now in terms of career development?
Yeah, I think the first most important thing is learn as much as you can about an area that no one cares about. Okay, what I mean by be curious. Yeah. You got to be curious. Okay, learn about an area and become an expert in some area. Something. Like something. I don't know what it is. Yeah. If you read the 5 top books in a subject matter, you become pretty much an expert. Did you know that? I don't know if you knew that.
That's it's 100. If you spend 100 hours on any specific skill, you are now in the top 5% of that skill in the world.
100 hours is not a lot of hours.
Yeah.
It's like 3-4 weeks or something, right? Yeah. It's like crazy, right? 2 weeks. 70 hours. So number one, be curious and sort of have some sort of expertise in something. So you understand something, so you understand. That's the first thing. I think is that. Second is be active, be engaged, go talk to people, shake hands. Yeah. Don't like every single day.
Be a person.
Be a person. Meaning, go out and send an email, drop a note, send a text, go on LinkedIn, comment on something, share, understand. Go ask questions. Like, be engaged. Be engaged. Yeah. And I would say third is, like I said, stop waiting. A lot of times you're waiting around for things to come to you, and there's no such thing.
That perfect time doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. I was in India. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in India. I wanted to take a bus in India. Buses are very crowded. People hanging with their fingernails on the bus. I go with my cousin. He's like, you can't take a bus, Bob. You're not from here. You're an American. You're from New York. I'm like, no, I want to do a bus. We go with the bus. He's like, okay, let's start running. I'm like, why? Because the bus is coming. So it's actually the cover of this book. Wow. Right? So the bus is coming. There's like hundreds of people clawing with their little metal bracket on the fingernails on the bus outside. Bus is completely packed. It doesn't slow down. It slows down a little bit, picks up speed and goes. You got to run for it.
Yeah.
So I was just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Right? And then the bus goes by. And he goes, what's going to happen? Why don't you run? It was like, there's no seat. I'll wait for the next bus. So they're all the same. I'm like, no, I want to wait for the next bus.
Yeah.
He goes, okay, fine. So the second bus comes, same thing. And my mind is like, no, what do? You're going to get hurt. You fall down, you break a leg, you go to the hospital. Have you seen the needles over here? Like, do they have healthcare? Like, what is going on, right? So a bus goes by. And finally, he goes, what happened? He goes, I need a bus with like one seat. I just need a space, you know? And so he's like, whatever. So the third bus comes. Again, I'm waiting for this bus. Same thing. And now I'm like, what's going on? Again, the thought, Bob, what are you doing? You're an executive. You shouldn't be doing this. You know, you don't need to prove anything to anybody. And then this older lady started running. And I saw her. I'm like, she can do it. You know, I can do it. So I start running. I found myself running. I caught a little space on the handle of the bus, completely crowded. And I got on. I felt great.
Let's go.
And then I slipped, and some guy helped me back on the bus. I was so happy. I got on the bus. I was going somewhere. I felt great. Here's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
If you wait for the perfect bus, you get nowhere in life. Because there's no such thing as perfect job, career, business, or life, or spouse.
Yeah.
You can't, if you stop overthinking, start running. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel you're going forward in life. And should you fall like I did, the universe
multiple times
the universe will send a friend to help you get back on the bus in life. So move forward. Stop overthinking and start running. Yeah. When you do, you're going to feel great. So move forward is the last lesson is stop overthinking life. Just get in there and start taking action.
Yeah, there's no perfect time. The time is now.
Time is now.
Yeah. Well, for one, thank you so much, Bob, for everything. And before we kind of wrap up here, this is kind of your chance to, one, we have your books all out here right now. I know you're really getting involved with Hoop, your own startup. So this is your chance to, really plug, shout out anyone you want to shout out, kind of plug your books, your company. So yeah, this is your moment to plug.
All right, thank you for having me, Darsh. It's been a pleasure. Hoot is my company, gethoot.com. My books are available on Amazon. Make your own luck. I think it's perfect for your audience if they're looking to grow in sales, their careers, or get their first job.
Yeah.
So check out Make Your Own Luck. But you can buy these on Amazon and anywhere else. Yeah. But thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. And guys, instead of buying Chipotle today, buy a book. Chipotle's gonna be out of your system in 2 days. You're gonna forget about it. This book's you're gonna keep you going forever. So think about that for a second.
Absolutely.
But no, Bob, seriously, it was honestly such a pleasure. I felt like I was learning so much. I had a lot of follow-up questions for you after the podcast is over, and I think everyone at home probably had so much I hope you guys take notes on this, honestly. For one, we're kind of reflecting on this conversation. I think about how to, handle networking, those 4 questions on how to handle that. How important it is to be curious, and there's no perfect time. I think if you really understand those things and really go back and rewatch this, like, the amount of value here has been so good. So
great.
So Bob, I really personally had a great time. I want to thank you again, Bob, in my heart. And yeah, it was a pleasure having you on the episode today, Bob.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Bob. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Welcome to the Growth Street Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's episode.